What is up, guys? So today we're going to talk about prison victims. I'm just going to share a few little stories of seeing prison victims along the way and what they have to go through, because let's face it, Axel Rudibongo is a prison victim. He might be tough when he's got his knife, he might be tough when he's doing what he did in the town centre when he's got balaclava on and 50 coats, 50 puffer jackets. He might be tough then. But strip all that away, throw him into a tough long-term prison, and let's see how tough he really is. Because I'm telling you, he's not going to have it easy. He has managed to upset the entire country, and everybody wants a piece of this guy. So that's what we're going to talk about. Yeah, it's my own personal experiences. It's not the right answer. It's not the wrong answer. It's just my answer from what I've seen over the years. You all know my story. Spent half my life in prison because I was a drug addict, and I've seen a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of prison victims along the way. So yeah, Axel Rudibongo. Just imagine, right? You're in a long-term prison now. Every wing, even in general prisons, you know, every wing has got at least 10 people who are really about that life. You know, they can go to that level of violence in a flick of a switch. And imagine this little weasel, because he's only a little skinny little rat, isn't he? So imagine if he walks onto the wing with as high profile as he is for what he did. Just imagine it. He's going to walk on the wing, and there's going to be like people like what's his name, Charles Bronson and Shane Taylor, Danny G, not the Smedic weirdo, the real one, you know, who's they call him the gorilla because he's just mental, and he just throws people about. People like Brett May, you know, big violent lumps. Just imagine he walks onto a wing and they're all on there. You know, he might be able to go behind his cell and keep the door locked, but at some point they're going to get to him. And even if they don't, you know, even just regular nonces get tortured and they get their food messed with. And he's like a super nonce, so he's really going to get it by everybody. And don't give me this, oh, the Muslims will protect him. The Muslims won't protect him. And if they do, then they'll get smashed from, you know, guilty by association. If you want to hang around with the nonce, then you're a nonce. So he'll not get protected by nobody. And I can't see how they're going to keep him safe. What they're going to have to do is, which I've seen before, is use an entire wing just for him. But there's no prison spaces, so how they're going to do it? At some point, somebody's going to know where he is. Somebody's going to find out where he is, and everybody will be screaming at him. Just imagine, he'll be sat in his cell. Hopefully he doesn't have a TV. Hopefully he's in isolation. Every time someone goes past his cell, they're going to be smashing the door, shouting through the door, throwing piss through his windows, banging on his windows. They're going to be messing with his food, because the people down at the canteen are going to know who he is. They're going to know this food's for him. So they'll be, you know, they might stick a few, some bits of glass in his food. They might pee in his food. There's all sorts of different ways to mess with him other than beating him up, because he's not going to get beat up just yet. I've heard a couple of people say, oh yeah, he's already been beat up. Ray Bang Bang Hill says so. He says what he wants. You can't believe a word he says. He can barely string a sentence together. If you see his titles of his videos, it's like Beast, Gone, Dead, Sean, Bing. What? And he just says things, and they're not even true half of the time. So yeah, anyone saying that he's been beat up already, I highly doubt it. It might have been, but I can't see it, because none of these prisons are going to be what is the one that didn't protect this guy, because the government loves these fucking terrorists and that. They love to protect them. So no prison wants to be the one that let him get beat up. So yeah, at some point he's going to get it, and even if he don't, they're still going to mess with him in all other different ways. There's a million different ways to mess with people in there, and it happens to normal nonsense. So imagine how bad he's going to get it. Every single day he's going to have to sit in his cell listening to everybody threatening him through the windows, and like I said, throwing piss through his door, and throwing shit through his window, and any way possible they can get to him, they're going to do it. So yeah, don't worry about him suffering, because I think he will suffer, and eventually at the end of it he probably will. I mean, just imagine if like someone like, and I'm not saying these like in particular, but people like these, people like Shane Taylor and people like Danny G. Imagine if 3 or 4 of them have got into a cell where he's at. They'll rip him apart because he's a skinny little rat. But anyway, that's what's going to happen with him. I'm going to stop mentioning him now. I might, unless he gets done in and there's proof, then I might talk about it then, because I'm sick of seeing his horrible little broccoli face. It just makes me mad. But anyway, yeah, prison victims I've met along the way. This is just an example of what happens to them. I remember one kid came in. He was gay, and prison is a very homophobic place. That's not me saying that. That's not me. You know, I'm not homophobic, but prison is. And he was one of those who's really over theatrical gay. And he had an attitude like, yeah, I'm gay, and what? What are you going to do about it? So he was a right knobhead from the start. And he, as soon as he walked on the wing, as soon as he started talking, everyone was like, boom, straight on him. They took everything off him, everything. I even think they took his shoes. They went in his cell, took everything out of his cell, and they was really badly bullying him. And usually when people come along like that, if somebody's struggling, I'll usually go and see him, and sit and have a chat with him, because in prison you get tired of hearing the same old stories. People saying how many cars they've twacked, and people saying how many jaws they've broke, and it gets tiring, and you find yourself like craving a half intelligent conversation. So if someone's struggling, I'll go and see him. Like if there's a homeless guy who's not coming out of his cell, I'll go and see him, and I'll go and have a word with him, and I'll not make him go in the shower, but I'll make him feel obligated. I'll say, oh, you want some shower gel? Hey, get your in the shower. Yeah, come and sit with us, try and get him out of the cell, and just sit with these guys and talk and give him a bit of advice. And that's what I do, and that's what I try doing with this guy. But he was a right knobhead. As soon as I walked in, he had an attitude, and I remember he was into the rave scene, and I was into the rave scene, so I started talking about it, saying, oh yeah, back in the 1990s when I used to go, and he was going, oh, and I thought, you fucking knobhead, he didn't even want to listen, he was just a prick. But I gave him a bit of advice. I says, look, you're not gonna last on here if you go around like you're doing with the attitude. But he didn't listen, and as I left the cell, I remember thinking to myself, what a fucking knob. And he got really badly bullied. There was shitting in his bed, pissing on his pillow, just messing with him all the time. Like if he was on the yard, walking around the yard, someone would run up and just go bang, smack him with like a kidney shot when he wasn't looking. They'd run behind him with apples and throw him into the back of his head. And it lasted quite a while, but eventually it just went. And that's what it's like. People get bullied. Sometimes they get bullied to death. I remember one kid it was a Donny lad, right? I went onto a wing, and I was new on the wing, so I didn't really have any pull. And he was on there, and he was getting bullied, and I ended up in a cell with him. And they were coming to his door and shouting through the door, and I'm thinking, fucking hell. And he was just getting bullied, he'd not really done anything wrong, he was just an easy target. But he was from Donny, so I kind of had to sit with him and stuff, and I did do. I would walk out around the yard, I'd sit with him, I'd have a word with the lads, I'd say, fucking leave him alone, man. But they carried on bullying him, and I kind of put my neck on the line by hanging about with him, because he was a Donny lad and you stick together. And I remember I was in the cell, and I went on the yard, because you get an hour's exercise to walk around every day. And I went out and he stayed in the cell, so I've gone out and I've come back in, and he's moved his son on protection, or moved his son on another wing, I don't know where he went. And he took half of my canteen with him, half of my biscuits, half of my tobacco, half of everything, and left me a note saying, I'll sort you out when I see you on the out. I thought, you cheeky little prick, I fucking, put my neck on the line for this guy. And he rips me off like that. I forget his name, it was something like Eamsy or something like that. So if you see this Eamsy, you fucking little rat, I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget that. He's probably dead now anyway, they usually are. I did see him in, I think it was Everthorpe. He was walking up the runway, so I couldn't, I weren't face to face with him, but I'd just give him a few verbals out the window. And that's what it's like in prison. You try and help people, and sometimes they shit on you. That's the cost of being a good person, I suppose. And I remember one kid, he got bullied to death. And, well, I say that. See, when I was in prison, people, I was known as a good lad. You know, even the screws knew I was a good lad. So if someone was struggling, like, they'd put him in with me. And not all the time, because I wouldn't have it all the time, but every now and again, if someone's struggling, they could, like, well, we'll put him in with him, but he might get bullied. If we put him in with him, he might take advantage of him and tax all his stuff. We'll put him in with Paddy, because Paddy's all right, he'll look after him. So they put this kid in with me. And I was up talking with him till like 12 o'clock at night. I was having a laugh. I was trying to cheer him up, and he was covered in cuts. You know, he had scars all over him. So I knew he was like a suicide. And they do have buddies in prison. I've never been a buddy. But they have buddies and listeners, which are other prisoners. They wear like a red jumper with a listener on it. And if you've got any bad news or you're feeling down, you can ask to see a listener. And they get access to the whole prison, and they can come to your cell and sit and have a talk with you. It's a pretty good job, really. But I've never really been interested in doing that. But yeah, I sat with him. We was having a laugh, trying to cheer him up, and then we went to bed. And then like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, the fucking buzzer's on, and he stood at the door, tapping the door. And he's saying, "Oh, I need an officer." What's up with it? And I put the light on, and there's fucking blood all over the cell. You know, he stood there with a razor blade. He'd cut his own neck, and there was just blood everywhere. And I'm locked in the cell with him. You know, just imagine that. People saying, "Oh, prison's a holiday camp. Prison's Butlins without the swimming pool." Imagine that. 2 o'clock in the morning, you're locked in a cell with a dude with a razor blade, covered in blood. He could have done out to me while I was asleep. He could have slashed my face, anything. Luckily, he only wanted to hurt himself. And the screws can't get in because it's the early hours. I don't know how it works, but I don't think they've got keys for the doors overnight. They have to get authority, and somebody has to come, I think. So I'm locked in this cell with him until the fucking screws come. This fucking guy with a razor blade. Luckily, the screws came, and like I say, he only wanted to hurt himself. He was stressed out and he couldn't hack it. But you get people like that in prison, and they cut themselves all over. They make a right mess of themselves. And the screws have come. They took him off to the hospital wing, and then I'm left in the cell, and I've got to clean up all this blood. And that's the reality of prison. You've got no, you know, you could end up in a cell with anyone. I mean, just imagine next time you go to town and go see these homeless people that are sat in the doorways. You know, there's big issue sellers. I've been homeless. I know what it's like. And just imagine they've always got big dirty beards, dirty teeth because you can't shower on the streets, big yellow dirty fingers, scruffy clothes, they stink of BO. Imagine they come to prison, you go to prison, you get put in that cell with him because you can't do it when you first get there. You've got to go in with wherever there's space. And if you don't, they just take you down the block. So imagine that. You've got to live with this guy, this homeless guy. He's got a shit in front of you. He's got a piss in front of you. He's farting. He stinks. And you're on the top bunk. He's literally underneath you. And you've got to smell. And you've got to live in a room no bigger than a freaking, what do you call them? Like a mop room. Just like a cupboard. And it's got a bed in it and a toilet. So there's hardly any room. And you've got to live with this homeless guy. So, you know, you've got to take that into account. The next time, if you're thinking of going down that road, going to prison, you could end up in a cell with a nutter, with a maniac. I've been locked up with nutters. I've been locked up with Somalians, with Muslims, all different. I've had hundreds of cellmates. Most of the time, they're all right, but every now and again, you might get one and you don't know who he is. It could be a terrorist or out. But yeah, so there was another guy who killed himself as well. He was getting bullied relentlessly. And I remember, I used to say to him, I said, you've got to stick up for yourself, you know. If you let them walk all over you, then they will. And I says, next time, he says, oh, just put it on him and just show that you're willing to fight. And you don't, half of the time, you don't have to. You just have to show that you're willing to fight. And he said, oh, yeah, all right, I'm going to do it. And then we were sat, it was so cringe. We were sat at the table. And this kid that was getting bullied, he was sat there, and the kid that was doing all the bullying came up and sat down, and this kid just jumps up, he says, and what? And we was all like, fuck's sake. And he was just saying, and what? And what? And we was all like, what are you on about, mate? It was so cringe, and he just walked off. And it just made it worse. And that's the thing with prison victims. It's all about how you conduct yourself, you know. Like, I'm not a tough guy, but you put me in any prison, or most prisons in England, I've never been on protection. I've never been on a protection wing. I've never been a VP prisoner or whatever you call it. Not because I'm a tough guy, because I know how to conduct myself. And if you don't know how to conduct yourself, you know, you can get taken advantage of, and it don't matter. I've seen guys who are big, strong, fucking guys who can really fight, getting bullied by little weasels. And I just think, fucking hell, one slap, you'd take his head clean off. But because he don't know how to conduct himself, you know, people take advantage of him. And there was one kid, he was getting bullied so bad that the next morning, we woke up, or I woke up, and I was at my dub flap because I heard loads of running about and keys jangling, and you know the noise where the feet are running along the floor of the screws, and the screw was going around shutting all the flaps so that people couldn't see out, but I could still see a little gap through mine. And I was looking through, and they came and got this guy, and he killed himself. He'd hung himself. I can't remember if it was that kid who I've just talked about, or because it was years ago, but he was a kid who was getting bullied, and he killed himself. And I saw him bringing his body out, and the way they do it, it's not like on TV where they just hang themselves, because there's nowhere to hang yourself. So they have to get creative. They have to like tie their feet to the sink and tie their neck to the bed and then just roll off. I don't know how they did it, but it's somehow something to do with his sink and his bed. And I saw him dragging his body out, and that's always stuck with me. So yeah, that's just a few stories about prison victims, and like I say, most of it's how you conduct yourself. If you don't know how to conduct yourself, you know, if you're going around telling everyone like Danny G does, like rock hard, bit everyone's nose up, then you know people are going to find out because someone's going to put it on you. So if you're projecting a tough guy image and you're not a tough guy, then you're going to get found out. So yeah, just be yourself. You don't have to impress everyone. You don't have to impress anyone. Just get through your time, sit in your cell and do your number. That's my advice. But yeah, that's just a few things about prison victims. And like I say, with this Axel, rudibongo, they're going to catch up with him eventually. And until then, he's just going to get terrorised from all angles because he's upset everybody. Everybody wants a piece of this guy. And imagine going on a wing and there's 10 big, burly, violent lumps like Danny Christie or Brett May or Paul Venice. You know, imagine if he walks onto wing and all those dudes are on there. They're going to fucking rip him apart. But anyway, that's the video for today. If you like this video, press the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Nerf the pap.